relief and assistance. But unless a new bill is approved soon, several relief measures may expire by Christmas. And building jobs at the cost of the
I'm seeing around the country a lot of quick movement to close schools. I'm a pediatrician and a parent, and I know how important in-classroom learning is. And there's so many communities that have been able to do that effectively. When you look at Europe, they are viewing schools as an essential service, and they're closing everything else that's necessary in order to protect the ability for children to go to school safely and for teachers and staff in those schools to have the resources they need so they can do that safely. But rather than closing bars, moving restaurants to pick up delivery, canceling some of those indoor activities that we know are at risk, we're reflexly and quickly closing down schools in places where the data aren't showing that's a risk.
Let's go back to what you were saying a moment ago about the federal government, about Congress and its role. What do you think it's most urgent that Congress do? As we know, it's been months since there's been any movement in the Congress on aid around this pandemic. What do you think it's most important that they get done?
Well, there are several things. They need to put in place immediately a moratorium on evictions and mortgage foreclosures. It's estimated that there are tens of millions of people in January who are at risk of becoming homeless, being evicted in the middle of winter, in the middle of a raging pandemic. They need to put money in people's pockets. We saw in the spring how valuable that was for people to meet their essential needs, but also to be able to stay home if they weren't feeling well and thought that they might have COVID. They need to extend unemployment benefits and increase the unemployment benefits so those people who aren't working have the resources they need to protect themselves and their families. They need to ensure that everyone has sick leave and family medical leave. These are things that in many countries are the basics. And they also need to provide protection for small businesses. The PPP program, the payroll protection program, needs to be reinvigorated, and the resources need to be there. And our states desperately need money. Unlike the federal government, our states need to balance their budget. And without millions and millions of dollars to states, states are going to have to make decisions as to whether they fully fund Medicaid, whether they fully fund their school systems, whether they fully fund their housing programs. Those programs are desperately needed now, but without federal dollars, state governments will have to make decisions that you never want to see them have to make.
So what would you say to lawmakers who say, well, we put a lot of money, we tried to put a lot of money together, try to send it out to different works, some of it, a lot of it, yet, we are pushing into doing something. What do you say?
What I would say is look at the numbers. 250,000 and recognize that by the end of the year,
More on all of this after the news summary. The U.S. economy showed new signs of damage from surging COVID-19 infections and restrictions. The Labor Department reported another 742,000 Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. That was up about 30,000, and it marked the first increase in 5 weeks. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is ending several pandemic-era emergency lending programs run by the Federal Reserve. The funds were allocated by the CARES Act last spring and supported Fed lending to businesses, nonprofits, and local governments. The Fed wanted the program to remain in place, but Mnuchin said Congress intended unused funds be returned to the Treasury. Hurricane Iota's death toll has risen to more than 40 across Central America. Deadly landslides were triggered by the flooding that overwhelmed whole communities in Honduras and Nicaragua. Rescue efforts are continuing, and the president of Honduras is pledging to help thousands left homeless.
We are continuing with humanitarian work. It is crucial that people do not return to their homes. There are still places at risk. In the meantime, we have to attend to our people with hot food and shelter. Those who are outside of their homes, in shelters, support them in getting there.
All told, some 213,000 Hondurans and Nicaraguans are living in shelters. Human Rights Watch reports that military coalition in Afghanistan investigates police conduct, as well as federal special forces killed 29 Afghan prisoners. The paid for only $3 million from the Trump campaign. The rancor over how to conduct the recount was on full view last night as state election officials argued for 6 hours.
This is ridiculous. All you and Dean keep talking about is these evil Democrats are going to do something nasty so that these honest, hardworking Republicans aren't going to be able to see what's going on. And I'm tired of that. We need to look at this in terms of, even though we're partisan, a nonpartisan commission, and stop worrying about stuff that doesn't exist.
In all, the president's campaign and allies have initiated legal actions in 6 battleground states, employing a hodgepodge of debunked allegations that range from voting equipment conspiracies to supposed improprieties by election clerks. Publicly, at least, most Republicans in Congress still defend the effort.
I think every legal vote should be counted, every recount should be finished, and every legal challenge should be heard.
Lacking evidence or legal standing, several of the cases have been dismissed or dropped. But while the allegations have fallen flat in court, the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, continued today in a lengthy news conference to spread them to the public.
There was a plan from a centralized place to execute these various acts of voter fraud, specifically focused on big cities.
Even with disinformation emanating from the very top, the process marches on. Michigan has now certified its statewide results. A recount in Georgia is coming to an end, with Biden still winning. And as more battleground states certify tallies ahead of a December 8th deadline, President Trump's pathways to challenging votes are being closed off, one by one. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy.
For more on the Trump campaign's election maneuverings, we turn to our White House correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor. She's in Wilmington, Delaware tonight. Yamiche, so nice to see you.
So who are you talking to now?
What is the political strategy behind the Trump campaign's efforts to keep fighting these fights in these different states?
Well, President Trump is continuing to ratchet up his campaign to unjustifiably have the election overturned in his favor by getting personally involved in a way we have not seen any American president do in an election. And the Trump campaign is continuing to file lawsuit after lawsuit without any evidence of their claims of voter fraud. And most of that is coming through the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Now, the president did something that was very, very remarkable. He called 2 county officials in Michigan, in Wayne County, which includes Detroit, and he essentially talked to them about the election. Now, these officials were people who did not at first want to certify the votes. They then went ahead and voted to certify them. But after talking to President Trump, they then decided they wanted to rescind their votes to certify. Now, state officials say that there is no legal avenue to do that. But critics of the president say that this is dangerous behavior for him to actually be calling people personally as the president of the United States. Also, the president has invited the top 2 Republican elected officials in Michigan. They have a Republican-controlled state legislature to the White House. Critics of the president